Commander Susan Wright stared through the viewport of Earth's orbital station. The alien ship hanging in space looked like a giant silver teardrop. It shimmered with strange lights that no human engineer had ever created. Susan took a deep breath. Today was her first meeting with the aliens who called themselves the Galactic Union. "Are you ready, Commander?" asked Alan Garcia, the materials scientist who stood beside her. His dark eyes showed both worry and excitement. "As ready as I'll ever be," Susan replied. She straightened her blue uniform and checked her appearance, one last time. Her short brown hair was neatly combed, and her face showed the confidence of someone who had trained for 15 years to reach her position. "Let's go make first contact official." The meeting room was large and circular. One half had been set up for humans with normal chairs and tables. The other half contained strange cushioned platforms and mist generators that created the atmosphere the aliens needed to breathe comfortably. A flash of light announced the arrival of the alien delegation. 3 beings materialized in the room. They were tall and thin with 4 arms and skin that looked almost see-through. Their large eyes blinked slowly as they studied the humans. "Greetings, Earth representatives," said the tallest alien. Its voice came from a small device at its neck. "I am Chief Engineer Xylith of the Galactic Engineering Corps. We welcome you to the greater community of spacefaring civilizations." Susan stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth and all humans, we thank you for this historic meeting. I am Commander Susan Wright of the Earth Defense Fleet." The aliens settled onto their cushioned platforms. Xylith's skin changed color slightly, showing patterns that moved across its body like clouds. "We have studied your planet for some time," Xylith said. "We find it most unusual." "Unusual in what way?" Susan asked. "Your world is what we classify as a death world." The alien's voice remained calm, but its skin pulsed with bright colors. "The gravity is extremely high by our standards. Your weather patterns include violent storms, freezing cold, and burning heat. Your oceans contain deadly predators. Even your atmosphere contains oxygen, which is corrosive to most life forms in the galaxy." Susan exchanged glances with Alan. This was not what they had expected. "And yet," Xylith continued, "your species not only survived, but developed space travel. This is rare. Most intelligent life evolves on gentle worlds with stable conditions. Earth has always challenged us," Susan said. "Maybe that's why we've learned to solve problems creatively." The second alien, who had been quiet until now, made a sound like bubbling water. The translator device interpreted, "Creative, yes, but your technology is still very basic compared to galactic standard." Susan felt her face grow warm. "We've only been in space for a short time compared to your civilization, which makes your achievements somewhat impressive for primitives," Xylith said. "This is why we have come. The Galactic Union holds a competition every 50 years called the Stellar Forge Challenge. It tests the engineering skills of all member species. We would like to invite Earth to participate." Alan leaned forward, clearly interested. "What kind of challenge?" "Each cycle presents a different problem. Past challenges have included creating artificial habitats, designing new propulsion systems, and building energy collection devices for extreme environments." Xylith's skin rippled with patterns. "The competition begins in 6 months. Most species prepare for years, but we thought it might be interesting to include a newcomer species." Susan recognized the tone. The aliens didn't expect humans to win. They were inviting Earth as a curiosity, not a serious competitor. "We would be honored to accept," she said, keeping her voice level despite feeling insulted. After the meeting, Susan gathered her team in the Earth Embassy section of the station. Besides Alan, there was Lily Patel, a brilliant engineer with wild curly hair and endless energy, and Kevin Hammond, a tactical systems specialist who had once been a fighter pilot. "They think we're just dumb animals who got lucky with technology," Susan told them. She paced back and forth, unable to hide her frustration. "Did you see their ships?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with excitement. "Their energy systems must be amazing. One of their smaller vessels could probably power all of North America. And their materials," Alan added. That outer hull wasn't metal or any composite I recognize. It almost looked alive. Kevin crossed his arms. Great, so they're thousands of years ahead of us. Why did you accept their challenge? We'll look like fools. Because, Susan said, stopping her pacing to look at each team member, they've underestimated us. Yes, they have better technology, but technology isn't everything. What do you mean? Asked Lily. They evolved on easy worlds. Gentle gravity, perfect weather, no predators. Everything came easily to them. Susan's eyes lit up with determination. But we're from Earth. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We've survived ice ages, predators, diseases, and our own worst mistakes. We don't give up. Alan nodded slowly. You think our survival instincts give us an edge? I think our whole history gives us an edge, Susan replied. We've always had to make do with less, to find creative solutions when the obvious ones weren't available. The Galactic Union has never faced a species like us before. Kevin still looked doubtful. So what's our plan? We have 6 months to prepare for a competition against aliens with technology we can barely understand. Susan smiled. First, we learn everything we can about them. Their strengths, their weaknesses, how they think. Then we show them what humans do best, adapt and overcome. Lily jumped up, her energy contagious. I want to study their energy systems. If we can understand even the basics, we might be able to create something new. I'll focus on materials, Alan said. Maybe we can't match their technology, but we might find Earth materials with properties they've never considered. Kevin sighed, but couldn't hide a small smile. I guess I'll look at their defense and propulsion systems. Might learn something useful. Susan looked at her team with pride. This was why humanity had survived Earth, because when faced with impossible odds, humans didn't surrender. They got creative. They think we're just dumb brutes, Susan told her team, a slow smile spreading across her face. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do. Outside the viewport, Earth turned slowly beneath them, beautiful and dangerous. The crucible that had forged humanity's greatest strength. The will to overcome any challenge no matter the odds. 6 months passed quickly. The human team worked day and night studying every piece of information the Galactic Union shared with them. They learned about alien technologies, strange materials, and engineering methods that seemed like magic. But Susan and her team didn't give up. The day of the competition arrived. Susan stood on the bridge of their ship, the Perseverance. It was Earth's newest vessel, but compared to the alien ships gathered around them, it looked like an ancient relic. Look at that one, Lily said, pointing at a ship that seemed to be made of glowing crystal. I bet it uses quantum fields for propulsion, Kevin whistled. And that one doesn't even have visible engines. How does it move? Remember, Susan told her team, fancy technology doesn't always mean better solutions. We stick to our plan. The Perseverance docked at the Stellar Forge platform. It was a massive structure orbiting Proxima Centauri b, the closest planet outside Earth's solar system. The platform sparkled with lights and strange materials that changed color as they watched. Susan led her team through the airlock. They wore their blue Earth uniforms, which looked plain next to the elaborate outfits of the alien engineers. Species of all shapes and sizes filled the main hall. Some floated in the air, others crawled on many legs, and some moved on platforms that hummed with energy. Is that a chemical propellant system on your ship? A voice asked from behind them. Susan turned to see a tall alien with shiny black exoskeleton and clicking mandibles. The translator device identified it as Trilixer of the Vega Collective. Alan smiled politely. Sometimes the old ways work best. Trilixer made a clicking sound that the translator called laughter. Charming, like watching a child use stone tools. Before Susan could respond, a strange sound filled the hall. Everyone turned to see a glowing sphere floating into the center of the room. Inside the sphere was a swirling gas that formed patterns and shapes. The Grand Arbiter, Lily whispered. I read about this species. They're made of gas and thought to be one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. The sphere pulsed with light, and a voice that seemed to come from everywhere said, Welcome to the 823rd Stellar Forge Challenge. The hall went silent as all attention focused on the floating sphere. For 823 cycles, the greatest engineering minds of the galaxy have gathered to push the boundaries of what is possible, the Arbiter continued. This cycle's challenge will test your abilities to their limits. The lights dimmed, and a massive hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed 2 stars, but unlike normal stars, these were small and incredibly dense. They spun around each other at amazing speeds. This is the binary neutron star system, GU 4727, the Arbiter explained. 2 dead stars, each with gravity, so strong that a spoonful of their matter would weigh billions of tons on Earth. They orbit each other at half the speed of light, generating massive gravitational waves and deadly radiation. Susan heard several aliens making sounds of surprise or concern. Even Xylith, who stood nearby, looked worried. Your challenge, the Arbiter announced, is to design and create a system that can harvest energy from this binary neutron star system. You have 1 standard cycle to complete your designs and implementations. No species has successfully harvested energy from such a system before. The hologram zoomed in, showing the violent forces at work between the 2 neutron stars. Massive waves of gravity rippled outward. Beams of radiation shot from their poles. It was like watching 2 angry giants locked in an endless dance of destruction. May the most elegant engineering prevail, the Arbiter concluded. The sphere dimmed, and the normal lights returned to the hall. All around them, alien teams were already discussing ideas. Some looked excited, others worried, but all were confident in their advanced technology. Kevin whispered to Susan, "They want us to build something that can survive next to a neutron star?" "Not just survive," Lily said, her eyes still fixed on where the hologram had been. Her fingers were already moving across her tablet, writing equations. "They want us to build something that can thrive there." Susan gathered her team and led them to their assigned work area. Each team had a space with tools, computers, and materials for planning their designs. "All right," Susan said once they were alone. "Let's break this down. What are we dealing with?" Alan brought up their own hologram of the neutron star system. 2 neutron stars, each about 20 kilometers across but with the mass of several suns. They orbit each other every 5 minutes, creating gravitational waves strong enough to warp space-time. The radiation alone would destroy most materials in seconds, Kevin added, and the gravity would tear apart anything that gets too close. So, we need something that can withstand both extreme radiation and gravitational forces, Susan said. Lily was still writing equations. Or, she said without looking up, we need something that doesn't try to fight those forces at all. The others turned to her. What do you mean? Susan asked. Look at what the other teams are doing, Lily said, pointing out the window of their work area. They could see alien engineers already building complex models with exotic materials that glowed and shifted shape. They're all trying to create structures that can resist the forces of the neutron stars. But what if we did the opposite? The opposite? Kevin frowned. On Earth, when ancient sailors faced a storm at sea, they didn't try to fight the waves head-on. They worked with them. Lily's eyes were bright with excitement. What if instead of trying to build something that resists the gravitational waves, we build something that rides them? Alan nodded slowly, understanding spreading across his face. Like a surfer on a wave. Exactly, Lily said. We create a system of collectors that use the gravitational waves as both protection and power. The energy of the waves themselves keeps our collectors in the safe zones. Susan smiled as she watched her team work through the idea. This was exactly what she had meant about human creativity. While the alien teams were building complex structures to fight against the neutron stars, the humans were finding a way to work with them. It's still going to be incredibly difficult, Alan warned. We'll need materials that can handle the radiation, even if they're not fighting the gravity directly. I have some ideas about that, Susan said. Remember those deep-sea creatures we studied? The ones that live near volcanic vents? They've evolved proteins that can withstand extreme conditions. What if we designed our collectors based on those principles? For the next few hours, the human team worked on their design. It was nothing like the complex quantum machines the aliens were building. Instead, it was elegant in its simplicity, a network of small collectors that would move with the gravitational waves rather than against them. "They think we're primitive," Susan told her team as they finalized their design. "But sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." Outside their work area, they could hear the aliens discussing their own designs, confident in their advanced technology. Little did they know that the humans from Earth had found a completely different approach, one born from a lifetime of adapting to a dangerous world. The next few weeks were intense. While the alien teams worked with advanced quantum computers and materials that seemed to defy the laws of physics, the human team took a different approach. Their work area looked messy compared to the clean, organized spaces of the other teams. Physical models hung from the ceiling. Hand-drawn diagrams covered the walls. Parts and prototypes were scattered across tables. "They're overthinking it," Lily said one morning as she watched the Vega team work on a massive ring structure through the window. "They've never had to make do with limited resources." Alan nodded. He was testing a material sample that combined carbon nanotubes with proteins inspired by Earth's deep-sea creatures. Every solution they design assumes perfect conditions, but in real life, perfect conditions never last. Susan walked in with drinks for everyone. She had just returned from observing the other teams. "The Arcturian team is creating artificial microsingularities to control the gravitational waves," she reported. "And the Proxima team is building some kind of shield made of exotic matter." "All direct approaches," Kevin said. He was programming a simulation on their computer. It wasn't as powerful as the alien quantum computers, but it was good enough for their needs. "They're trying to overpower or block the neutron stars. That takes enormous energy. On Earth, we learned long ago that sometimes it's better to work with nature than against it," Susan said. She picked up one of their prototype collectors. It looked simple compared to the alien technology, but its design was elegant. Desert cultures collect morning dew for water. Sailing ships use the wind instead of fighting it. Their design was based on similar principles. Instead of a single massive structure, they were creating a network of small collectors. Each one was designed to ride the gravitational waves produced by the neutron stars. The waves themselves would push the collectors into safe zones where radiation was lower. For the materials, they turned to Earth's most extreme environments for inspiration. The outer shells used proteins similar to those found in creatures living near deep-sea volcanic vents. The internal mechanisms were based on desert plants that could store energy during brief wet periods. "It's not about having the most advanced technology," Susan told her team as they worked. "It's about having the right technology for the job." Halfway through the competition, all teams had to present their progress to the judges. The presentation hall was massive, with seats for hundreds of alien observers. Each team had 20 minutes to explain their approach. The human team watched as the other teams presented their designs. The Vega Collective showed their quantum ring structure, which would surround the neutron stars completely. The Arcturian Federation demonstrated their microsingularity array, which would create tiny black holes to control the gravitational waves. Each presentation was met with sounds of approval from the alien audience. The technology on display was incredible, thousands of years beyond what humans had achieved on their own. When it was Earth's turn, Susan took the stage alone. She felt small standing before the crowd of alien engineers, but she held her head high. "The Earth approach is different," she began. "Instead of creating a single massive structure, we are building a network of small, adaptable collectors." The audience was quiet. Susan could feel their skepticism. "On our world, life has always had to adapt to harsh conditions," she continued. "From the deepest oceans to the highest mountains, Earth creatures find ways to thrive in environments that seem impossible." She activated a hologram showing their design. It was simple compared to the others. A swarm of small devices that would spread out around the neutron stars. "Our collectors don't fight the gravitational waves," Susan explained. "They ride them, using their energy for propulsion and protection. When one unit fails, the others adapt and continue working." As she described their approach, Susan noticed Chief Engineer Xylith in the front row. The alien's skin had changed color to a deep blue, which Susan had learned indicated surprise or confusion. "This is unusual," one of the judges said when she finished. "You're using mechanical systems where any rational engineer would use quantum fields." Susan smiled. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective." After the presentations, the teams returned to their work areas. They had another 2 weeks to finalize their designs before implementation. Xylith visited the human workspace the next day. The alien engineer moved slowly through the cluttered room, examining the prototypes with its 4 arms. "Your approach is primitive," Xylith said finally, "but intriguing. No other species would consider such a method." Susan wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not. "We work with what we know." "That is precisely what interests me," Xylith replied. "Your species evolved on a world that would kill most intelligent life forms in the galaxy. Yet instead of developing technology to control your environment completely, you adapted to work within it. Controlling everything takes too much energy," Lily said, looking up from her work. "It's more efficient to find balance." Xylith's skin changed to a pattern of swirling green and blue. Efficiency through simplicity. A strange concept. The alien turned to leave but paused at the door. "I begin to see why your species survived that dangerous world of yours." After Xylith left, Kevin chuckled. "I think we just got a compliment." Susan wasn't so sure. "We still have to prove our design works. All the theory in the world doesn't matter if it fails in practice." The team worked around the clock for the next 2 weeks. They built and tested prototype after prototype, refining their design with each iteration. While the alien teams created their collectors from exotic materials that humans had never seen before, the Earth team used materials based on things found on their home planet. Their final design incorporated fibers inspired by spider silk, which was stronger than steel but incredibly light. The energy storage systems were based on plant cells that could store energy efficiently. The navigation systems took ideas from birds that could sense magnetic fields. The day before implementation, Susan called her team together for one final review. "Tomorrow we'll find out if our approach works," she said. "The alien teams have technology we can barely understand, but we have something they don't." "What's that?" Alan asked. 4 billion years of evolution on a world that tried to kill us every day," Susan replied. "Every creature on Earth is a solution to a problem. Every plant, every animal has found a way to survive against the odds." Lily smiled. "And now we'll see if humans can survive neutron stars." That night, while the other teams made final adjustments to their complex creations, the human team got a good night's sleep. Their design was ready. It wasn't the most advanced in the competition, far from it, but they believed in their approach. Susan looked out the viewport at the stars before going to bed. Somewhere out there were the neutron stars waiting to test their design. She thought about Earth, so far away now. The planet that had shaped humanity with its challenges. The world that had taught humans to adapt rather than control. "We'll make you proud," she whispered to the distant stars. Then she went to sleep, ready for the final test. Implementation day arrived. The massive viewing chamber aboard the Stellar Forge platform was filled with alien observers from across the galaxy. They had come to watch the most challenging engineering competition in known space. Susan and her team stood behind their control station. Around them, other teams made final adjustments to their devices. The aliens looked confident with their advanced technology. Some even cast pitying glances toward the humans. The Grand Arbiter's sphere glowed brightly as it floated to the center of the chamber. "The time has come to test your creations against the neutron star system," the voice announced. "Each team will deploy their energy collection system. We will monitor how much energy is harvested and how long the system survives." A massive screen appeared, showing the binary neutron stars in real time. They spun around each other, creating deadly waves of gravity and radiation. The stars looked peaceful from a distance, but Susan knew they were among the most violent objects in the universe. "The Arcturian Federation will deploy first," the Arbiter announced. The Arcturian team stepped forward. Their creation was a beautiful array of devices, each containing a controlled micro-singularity. The devices glowed with strange energies as they were transported to the neutron star system. Everyone watched as the Arcturian system positioned itself near the neutron stars. For the first few minutes it worked perfectly. The micro-singularities absorbed the gravitational waves and converted them to energy. The monitoring screen showed impressive energy collection. Then something unexpected happened. One of the gravitational waves hit at an unusual angle. The pattern was slightly different from what the Arcturians had calculated. One by one, the micro-singularities became unstable. Within 20 minutes, the entire system had collapsed. "A valiant effort," the Arbiter said. The Arcturian system collected significant energy before failing. Susan watched carefully. The Arcturian design had been brilliant, but it couldn't adapt to unexpected conditions. It was too rigid, too perfect. Next came the Vega Collective with their massive ring structure. It lasted longer than the Arcturian design, almost 2 hours. But eventually, radiation levels exceeded their predictions, and parts of the ring began to fail. Without all pieces working together, the entire structure destabilized. Team after team deployed their creations. Each one was a marvel of advanced engineering. Some lasted minutes, others hours, but none could survive the chaotic environment of the neutron star system for long. Many alien observers had already stopped paying attention to the competition by the time Earth's turn came. They were discussing the failures, analyzing what went wrong, and debating which of the partially successful designs deserved to win. "Earth will now deploy their collection system," the Arbiter announced. Susan nodded to her team. "Let's show them what Deathworlders can do," she said quietly. Kevin pressed the launch button. Unlike the other teams, who had transported their entire systems at once, the humans sent their collectors in small groups. The first wave consisted of just 20 small devices, each no bigger than a human hand. The alien observers who were still watching seemed confused. Some even laughed at the tiny devices. "What are those supposed to do?" Trilxor asked loudly. "Get a closer look before they're destroyed?" Susan ignored the comments. She watched the screen intently as their first wave of collectors approached. The neutron stars. Instead of positioning themselves in a fixed pattern like the other designs, the human collectors spread out. They moved like a school of fish, each one slightly adjusting its position based on the behavior of the others. When the first gravitational wave hit, the aliens expected the human devices to be destroyed instantly. Instead, something remarkable happened. The collectors didn't fight the wave, they rode it. They allowed themselves to be pushed by the immense force, using it to move into new positions. "What are they doing?" one of the judges asked, leaning forward with interest. As the first wave of collectors settled into their positions, Susan launched the second wave. These collectors were slightly different, designed to work with the first group. "Our system is adaptive," Susan explained as the aliens watched with growing interest. "Each collector gathers information about the environment and shares it with the others. They learn and adjust in real time." Hour after hour, the human system continued to function. When one collector failed due to radiation or extreme forces, the others adjusted their positions to compensate. The network as a whole remained stable even as individual parts were lost. By the 6-hour mark, the viewing chamber was crowded again. Aliens who had left earlier returned when they heard that the primitive human design was still functioning. They watched in amazement as the small, simple devices continued to harvest energy from the neutron stars. "Impossible," Xylith muttered, standing next to Susan. The alien's skin had turned a bright yellow color that indicated extreme surprise. "You're using materials that should have disintegrated hours ago," Susan smiled. "We created them based on creatures from the deepest parts of Earth's oceans. Life finds a way to survive, even in the most hostile environments." Kevin pointed to the energy collection readings. "We're at 67% efficiency now. That's higher than any previous attempt." The human system kept working through the day and into the night, while other teams had seen their complex creations fail within hours. The simple human design adapted and survived. By the time the test period ended, After 24 hours, the human collectors were still functioning at 58% efficiency. How is this possible? One of the judges asked as the final readings came in. Your technology is centuries behind the other competitors. Technology isn't everything, Alan explained to the astonished aliens who now crowded around the human control station. Sometimes the elegant solution isn't the most complex one. Lily added, your civilizations evolved on gentle worlds. You never needed to adapt to harsh conditions. Your technology reflects that. It works perfectly in ideal conditions but struggles with chaos. Earth has never been gentle to us, Susan said. Our planet has extreme weather, natural disasters, and creatures that have evolved to survive against all odds. We learned long ago that rigid systems fail when conditions change unexpectedly. Xylith's skin had settled into a pattern of deep blue and purple that Susan had never seen before. Your collectors work together like a colony of organisms rather than a machine, the alien observed. Exactly, Susan nodded. That's how life on Earth works. No single creature is perfect, but together they create systems that can survive almost anything. The Grand Arbiter called for attention. The glowing sphere moved to the center of the chamber as everyone fell silent. The results are clear, the Arbiter announced. While many teams demonstrated remarkable engineering skills, one approach has proven superior in both energy collection efficiency and system longevity. Susan held her breath. Even with their success, she couldn't be sure they had won. The alien teams had centuries more experience in these competitions. For the first time, in 823 cycles of the Stellar Forge Challenge, a newcomer species has claimed victory, the Arbiter declared. Earth's adaptive collection system has harvested 42% more energy than any previous attempt in galactic history, all while using technologies that are remarkably simple by our standards. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds, some expressing surprise, others disbelief, and many offering congratulations in their own ways. Susan turned to her team, seeing the pride and joy on their faces. They had done what seemed impossible. With simple technology inspired by Earth's life forms, they had outperformed civilizations thousands of years more advanced. We did it, Kevin said, still staring at the final readings in disbelief. Lily was already making notes for improvements. Think how much better we could make it with some of their technology, she said excitedly. Alan smiled. We just showed the galaxy that humans know a thing or two about engineering. Susan looked out at the viewing screen, where their collectors still moved gracefully around the neutron stars, riding the waves of gravity like tiny surfers on an ocean of space-time. No, she corrected him. We showed them that humans know something about survival. The award ceremony took place 3 days later. The grand hall of the Stellar Forge platform was decorated with symbols from all participating civilizations. Delegates from across the galaxy had arrived to witness this historic moment. The first time an emerging species had won the most prestigious engineering competition in known space. Susan and her team wore their dress uniforms, cleaned and pressed for the occasion. They stood out among the aliens with their simple blue cloth compared to the exotic materials and elaborate designs of the other species. The Grand Arbiter floated to the central stage, the gaseous being's sphere glowing with patterns of light. For 823 cycles, the Stellar Forge Challenge has celebrated the greatest achievements in galactic engineering. Today we honor a newcomer who has taught us all a valuable lesson. A crystalline trophy rose from the stage, catching the light and breaking it into thousands of colors. It was shaped like a stylized neutron star with waves of energy flowing outward. Earth, the Arbiter continued, a planet classified as a death world, has produced engineers who see problems differently. Their solution to the neutron star challenge was not the most technologically advanced, but it was the most effective. They have shown us that innovation comes in many forms. Susan stepped forward to accept the trophy. It was surprisingly light, in her hands made of a material she had never seen before. As she touched it, the crystal seemed to respond, glowing slightly brighter. We misjudged you, Xylith admitted, approaching Susan after the ceremony. The alien's skin had taken on a pattern that the humans now recognized as the equivalent of embarrassment. We assumed technological sophistication was measured by complexity. Susan smiled. On our world, we learned that survival doesn't always go to the strongest or most advanced. Sometimes it goes to the most adaptable. Your neutron, star collectors, Xylith said. They continued to function even after the competition ended. Our scientists are still studying how your simple materials withstand such extreme conditions. The secret isn't in the materials themselves, Alan explained, joining the conversation. It's in how they work together. No single part has to be perfect because the system as a whole adapts. Xylith's skin rippled with interest. This concept could revolutionize how we approach engineering throughout the galaxy. Would your species be willing to share more of your unique perspectives? Susan looked at her team, seeing their eager nods. We'd be honored to collaborate, she said. The human victory sent shockwaves through the Galactic Union. Species that had previously dismissed Earth as a barbaric death world now sent delegations requesting meetings. Universities across the galaxy invited human engineers to speak. Trading vessels altered their routes to include Earth in their journeys. 1 week after the ceremony, Susan and her team prepared to return home. They had loaded the Perseverance with gifts, research materials, and technology samples freely shared by their new alien colleagues. It's amazing how quickly things change, Kevin said, as they made final preparations for departure. Last month they thought we were primitive animals. Now they're asking for our advice. Lily was examining a piece of alien technology, her eyes wide with excitement. Think of what we can do with this knowledge. Their quantum computing alone could advance Earth's technology by centuries. And they're just as interested in our ideas, Alan added. I've received 17 requests to explain our adaptive systems approach to various engineering guilds. Susan watched her team with pride. They had accomplished something no one thought possible, not just winning the competition, but changing how an entire galaxy viewed their species. A message appeared on their communication screen. It was from Xylith. Before you depart, the alien engineer said, the Galactic Engineering Corps extends an invitation. We are forming a new research division focused on adaptive technologies inspired by your approach. We would be honored if Earth would send representatives to join this initiative. Susan smiled. We accept with pleasure. I'll forward your invitation to Earth's government when we return. Xylith's skin glowed with patterns of satisfaction. Your species has much to teach us despite your technological limitations. Perhaps living on a death world has advantages we never considered. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow, Susan replied. That's something humans have always understood. After the communication ended, Susan gathered her team for a private celebration. They had saved a bottle of champagne from Earth for this moment. To the successful completion of our mission, Susan said, raising her glass. To showing the galaxy what humans can do, Alan added. Kevin grinned. To making the aliens rethink their definition of primitive. To what comes next, Lily said, her eyes gleaming with possibilities. Wait until they see what we can do with their technology. They drank their champagne as the Perseverance's engines powered up for the journey home. Through the viewport, they could see the stellar forge platform growing smaller, its lights twinkling like stars. You know what the aliens still don't understand? Susan said, looking out at the vast galaxy that had suddenly become much more accessible to humanity. What's that? Alan asked. Just how stubborn humans really are, Susan replied with a smile. We've only just begun to show them what we can do. 3 months later, Susan stood in a new facility built on Earth's moon. It combined human ingenuity with alien technology, a symbol of the new partnership between Earth and the Galactic Union. Engineers of a dozen species worked side by side, learning from each other. A large window looked out over the lunar landscape, with Earth hanging beautiful and blue in the black sky. That challenging world, with its high gravity, violent weather, and dangerous creatures, had shaped humanity into something unique in the galaxy. Chief Engineer Wright, a young human, assistant said, approaching Susan with a tablet. The adaptive shield prototype is ready for testing. Susan nodded. Since returning from the competition, she had been promoted to lead Earth's new Galactic Technology Division. Let's see it. As she watched the test, Susan thought about how far humanity had come in such a short time, from being seen as primitive Deathworlders to becoming valued partners in galactic engineering. A message arrived from Xylith, who was now a regular correspondent. The alien was leading a team implementing human-inspired adaptive systems on their homeworld. Your approach has changed everything, Xylith wrote. We built perfect systems for perfect conditions, never realizing how limiting that was. You taught us to embrace imperfection and adaptability. Susan smiled as she wrote her reply. That's the greatest lesson Earth taught us. Nothing is perfect, but that doesn't mean it can't be wonderful. Outside the window, Earth continued its turn around the sun, beautiful and harsh, gentle and brutal. The world that had forged humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt, to find creative solutions, to face the impossible and find a way forward. The galaxy would never be the same. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were just getting started.